I want to thank Samuel for his words of wisdom. Actually, I was exaggerating about my impregnable concentration. I'm also a bit distracted, but frankly, it is not that I'm distracted. Suppose a phone rings. My worry is that others will be distracted. So to that extent, yes, I'm also distracted. But I must tell you that it is possible to reach that level of concentration and absorption which protects you against the turbulences all around. You will never reach, or you will never find yourself in a situation which is completely sterile. And if you wait for ideal conditions to emerge before you begin to do your good work, you will never even make a beginning. So the important thing is to get started, irrespective of what, and go deeper and deeper into it. And as you go deeper into it, you'll find that you get progressively liberated from the intrusions of the world around. And that's how it happens. It may sound, a little too outlandish, but it's not. It's very practical. I have experienced it. I continue to experience it. I'm sure you too can. Today, let me turn your attention in a slightly different fashion, but a related area, which is of immediate relevance to us. I'm going to connect the theme to the context of our college. One of the shaping principles, or one of the three major pillars on which the college rests, is the pursuit of excellence. I'm sure by now you're aware of it. St. Stephen's College, your college, your academic home, is distinguished for its unapologetic, unwavering commitment to the pursuit of excellence in education. I've been saying this from day number one, because this is so very important for us. You haven't come to St. Stephen's College merely to earn a degree and to disappear into the vast, colorless ocean of ordinary engagements. You've come here to learn the alphabet of excellence and to make a commitment that lifelong you will pursue excellence in all that you do. And that's what makes a person a Stephanian. Now, the point I want to make is very obvious. You cannot pursue excellence except in a state of passion. Excellence is something you cannot pursue in a half-hearted way, in an attitude of indifference or even sporadic enthusiasm. Sporadic means coming on and off. You're enthusiastic for 10 minutes, then indifferent for 5 days, blowing hot, blowing cold. That doesn't help. In fact, the mark of a good student is the capacity to sustain one's enthusiasm over a long period of time. Instead of your enthusiasm diminishing as days go by, it should increase, deepen, and become richer as weeks and months roll by. That's the sign of a good student. So it's very easy for you to find out yourself whether you are a good student, and if you are not, what to do about it. Do not lose the enthusiasm, the excitement that you experienced when you found from the list published by college in the month of June, July, that you made it. And you virtually jumped up and down screaming with delight. That was enthusiasm. And that enthusiasm should never be lost. Now, I also want to tell you that both the pursuit of excellence and enthusiasm presuppose the need for limits. If there are no limits, there can be no enthusiasm. That's a paradox of life. Many people are under the illusion that if all limits and boundaries are abolished, life will be great. It is exactly the opposite. The reason why people in this day and age have become indifferent, lukewarm, incapable of any excitement, people who do not know whether they are dead or alive. In fact, there is a poem by T.S. Eliot wherein a wife asks her husband, "Are you dead or are you alive?" It's in the wasteland. Now that's the condition of people today. Well, there is an image from another poem by T.S. Eliot, Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, in which he says, "Let's go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky, like a patient etherized upon the table." This is a human predicament. Everybody is under anesthesia, as it were. Nobody is coming into full consciousness. People are simply sailing through, drifting. Now this is a vast tragedy, and as I said yesterday, in such a condition, in such an outlook, such an attitude, you will never do justice to yourself. You will willingly make yourself an exile from the treasures of life. And how very sad that it is so. And that's the reason why I deemed it necessary to warn you against such calamities which can be averted. So coming back to the pursuit of excellence, I said that it is necessary to have limits. And the one word which describes or which comprehends all these healthy limits is discipline. Now, unfortunately, young people all over the world have come to resent discipline. Discipline is one of the most widely misunderstood categories of thought or ideas. I tell you that nothing can be achieved in life without discipline. It's impossible to experience excitement or passion or enthusiasm without limits. Let me illustrate. If you were to go and play tennis, what enables you to play a game of tennis is not only your ability to wield the racket with efficiency and to negotiate the ball, not merely your knowledge of the rules of the game and your excellent ball control, your footwork, your reflexes. What makes it possible for you to play a game of tennis is the court. And the court is nothing but a set of limits. The service line, the baseline, so on and so forth. And there is a net in between. You remove all those lines, you remove all the limits, playing becomes impossible. That's life. That's life. You want to play a game of chess, okay? Remove all the rules. Is it possible to play a game of chess? You want to drive on the road. You remove all the rules, all the signals, free for all. Is it possible to drive and come back alive? So please understand this very clearly, that limits are a blessing. Limits empower us. Limits are not a hindrance or a problem. Limits make life possible. Henry James, the novelist, said that art is all inclusion and exclusion. You know, as an author, I can tell you that I do my research on a particular topic, And the research spread over, say, 2 years will generate a forest of information and data. A forest. Now, it's extremely important to decide what to include and what not to include. You cannot write a book which is, say, 10,000 pages. You want to write a book of 200 pages, 250 pages, maximum 300 pages. So what you include and what you decide to exclude will actually decide the merit of the book. If you throw everything pell-mell into a book simply because you have spent time researching on it and gathered this kind of material without using your discrimination as to what is relevant and what is not, and where the relevant thing must be positioned, then you don't write a book. So it's very important for us to understand that in order to pursue excellence, we must accept what? Discipline. And there is murderous misunderstanding on this, and that malady has also invaded St. Stephen's College. In our idea of education, there is an organic link between pursuit of excellence and character building. Let me give you an illustration. There is an episode narrated from the time of Principal Satyananda Mukherjee, one of the giants among the 12 principals we have had so far. He died in office in 1945. Cambridge educated, first class first, in Tripos from Cambridge, a brilliant mathematician, became principal when he was very young. The story goes that the college cricket team was playing its semi-finals against Ramjas College. And our captain, who was an outstanding player, indulged in a little bit of misconduct. He didn't behave like a gentleman. And Principal Mukherjee used to go and watch every match. Immediately called him and asked him and sent him off. College won the semi-finals. The time came for the finals, which was against Hindu College, which was actually the tradition in Delhi University. St. Stephen's College never lost before the finals. It's only that achievement is only a recent thing, losing before the quarterfinals. So, Principal Mukherjee said that the captain will not play for the college. And everybody was shocked. The superintendent of games said, "Sir, if he doesn't play, we will lose." He said, "I don't care. Behaving like a gentleman on the field is more important than winning an inter-college finals." That is St. Stephen's College for you. Without that, there is no pursuit of excellence. Please understand. As against this, we had an episode last year of a magazine being floated. I lent all my support to it. I was interviewed on the condition that the interview will be published only after I have seen the text and cleared it. I was given assurance repeatedly. But immediately they went and published it behind my back. And the man who did it became a hero of the country. The media turned him into a big hero. Now this is where we have come. Now I take that episode very seriously because it is like a death blow to the fundamental character of St. Stephen's College, which is the pursuit of excellence. You cannot pursue excellence and behave in this manner. It is impossible. If you don't feel for fundamental values, if you don't accept the genuine, legitimate limits within which people have to conduct themselves, how can you pursue excellence? Now, I have been pursuing excellence in my own way as the principal of the college. I can say that without fear of any contradiction. In order to do that, first I had to put myself under chains, as it were. I cannot compromise with X, Y, or Z. I cannot please this fellow and that fellow. I cannot dance to the tune of this person and that person, which is the temptation in the office of the principal. Then you become very popular. The first thing that the principal of St. Stephen's College has to decide, that he will give his life, if need be, in order to uphold the discipline of administering a great institution. That's called being passionate about administering St. Stephen's College. And that, I know, is fundamental to the pursuit of excellence in administration. Of course I will become unpopular, it doesn't matter. But your conscience will not bother you. The college will benefit. And you will learn something. I don't know to what extent you are aware of and appreciative of these things, but someday in your life you will turn back and realize the logic of what is unfolding in your midst. Unfortunately, we are living at a time when people just do not think, seek to understand. All our wisdom is derived from the newspapers or the media. We don't think for ourselves anymore. How can you pursue excellence if you are like this? Please liberate yourself from your intellectual slavery, which is imposed on you by the spirit of this age. Come into your own, and then you will realize that accepting gladly the legitimate limits for every enterprise is the most healthy thing, and it is essential for the pursuit of excellence. Now I'm going to give you an illustration from literature. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the writings of Count Leo Tolstoy. I would recommend Tolstoy to you very passionately. It's a great experience to read Tolstoy. In fact, Russian fiction in general is the richest literature that I can think of. There's a novella by Tolstoy with the title Father Sergeyev. Father Sergeyev. It's a story of a young man who wanted to pursue excellence in everything that he did. So he was an outstanding student. And then once he completed his studies, he joined the army and became a very outstanding soldier. And everybody said he would become the king's aide-de-camp, principal military officer, which is a great honor. But in the meanwhile, he falls in love with a young girl. And he's about to marry her. And so on the eve of their wedding, they have a conversation in the course of which, the girl reveals to him that she was, for a year, the king's courtesan. And this is too much of a shock for him. He's shattered. And he resigns from the army. He writes off all his wealth to his sister. And then he joins a monastery. Embraces an extremely ascetic form of life. In course of time, he becomes an ordained person, a priest. 7 years pass. 7 years pass. His reputation as a very ascetic, disciplined priest spreads far and wide. In the meanwhile, from the city, there is a girl who is very vain and very proud of her ability to tempt everyone because she is extremely bewitching, very charming. She enters into a wager, a bet with her friends, and the wager is that she will spend a night with Father Sergeyev. So they hatch a plot, and I'll not go into all details because there's no time. She manages to enter the monastery in the small hours of the night, knocks at the door of this small little place where this very ascetic priest is living. And she says she is very unwell, she is exposed to this cold, it is wet. Would he give her shelter? And the man is deeply troubled. He opens the door, she comes in. And then, of course, Tolstoy tells you the details about the way she tempts him. And finally, when the temptation reaches its zenith, something happens, and I'm going to read that out to you. Okay? The girl is calling Father Sergeyev with no good intention, and she says, well, shall I perish? If you don't come, I will die. Okay? They're adjoining rooms. And now listen very carefully. This is perhaps the most touching passage in all of literature. I will come to you directly, he said. And having opened his door, he went without looking at her through the cell into the porch where he used to chop wood. Register every word. There he felt for the block and for an axe which leant against the wall. Immediately, he said, and taking up the axe with his right hand, he laid the forefinger of his left hand on the block, swung the axe, and struck with it a blow below the second joint. The finger, now listen carefully, the finger flew off more lightly than a stick of similar thickness. You can virtually see it. Huh? The finger flew off more lightly than a stick of similar thickness, and bounding up, jumping up, bounding up, turned over. You can see it. Turned over on the edge of the block and then fell to the floor. Blood. He hastily wrapped the stump in the skirt of his cassock and pressing it to his hip, went back into the room, and standing in front of the woman, lowered his eyes and asked him in a low voice, "What do you want?" She looked at his pale face and his quivering left cheek, and suddenly felt ashamed. She jumped up, seized her fur cloak, and throwing it round her shoulders, wrapped herself up in it. She was in a state of provocative undress. I was in pain. I have caught cold. Father Sergey's eye. He let his eyes, shining with a quiet light of joy, rest upon her and said, "Dear sister, why did you wish to ruin your immortal soul? Temptations must come into the world, but woe unto him through whom temptations come. Pray that God may forgive you." She listened and looked at him. Suddenly she heard the sound of something dripping. She looked down and saw that blood was flowing from his hand and down his cassock. "What have you done to your hand?" She remembered the sound she heard, and seizing the little lamp, ran out into the porch. There on the floor, she saw the bloody finger. She returned with her face paler than his and was about to speak to him, but he silently passed into the back cell and fastened the door. "Forgive me," she said. "How can I atone for my sin? Go away. Let me tie up your hand. Go away from here." She dressed hurriedly and silently, then, when ready, sat waiting in her furs. The sledge bells were heard outside. She becomes a nun later. That's passion. That's the kind of passion I'm talking about. Passion that changes the world. Passion that makes an impact on others. That power is in each one of you. But if you run after the vain shadows of the world, you dissipate yourself and you will never know the meaning either of passion or of your own life. Let's rise for prayer.